President Biden signed into law the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, making Juneteenth a federal holiday recognizing and commemorating emancipation. The law makes Juneteenth the first federal holiday established since Martin Luther King Jr. Day in 1983, and the second federal holiday related to the history of Black Americans. While Juneteenth had been celebrated for decades in communities on a local level, primarily through churches and civic organizations, the holiday had not been widely known. That's about to change. Before President Biden signed the holiday into law, he had this to say about Juneteenth becoming a learning opportunity.
By making Juneteenth a federal holiday, all Americans can feel the power of this day and learn from our history and celebrate progress and grapple with the distance we've come, but the distance we have to travel, Jim.
Vice President Kamala Harris spoke about how establishing a federal holiday commemorating history makes a statement about us as a nation.
When we establish a national holiday, it makes an important statement. National holidays are something important. These are days when we as a nation have decided to stop and take stock, and often to acknowledge our history.
In a moment in this country when lawmakers are attempting to rewrite or flat out deny the relationship between the nation's past and its racial history, establishing Juneteenth as a national holiday is a big deal. The question now is, how big of a deal will it be? Joining us to discuss is Professor of History and African American Studies at Georgetown University, Marcia Chatelain. Professor Chatelain, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. So how big a deal is this?
Well, I think that we have to be measured in our response to the Juneteenth holiday, because I think, like we saw with the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, it does not necessarily mean that the nation is prepared to fully understand the extent of its misdeeds around racial injustice. I think that the federal holiday could be an invitation for people to learn more about Juneteenth and the realities of slaveholding, as well as the complicated ways that people learned of their emancipation and the failures of the federal government after the period of Reconstruction. And we also know that sometimes these holidays don't necessarily lend themselves to that. And so I think that the MLK holiday, which had the potential to be a day devoted to organized labor, to think about the anti-capitalist message of Dr. King, as well as his anti-militarism message, turned into a day of community service and sales at shopping malls.
So what should this day function as? I mean, if King's Day should have been about recognizing his positions on a lot of those issues and labor organizing, what should a federal holiday around emancipation of enslaved Black people, what should it be? What should people do on that day?
Well, I think it's not so much about a singular activity on that day, but rather an opportunity for a national moment of reflection of the atrocities of slavery, as well as the unfinished business of repair. And so if we saw this day as one in which leaders at the local level could consider reparations, if we think about it as a day to fight the backlash against the teaching of slavery on the K through 12 level, as well as the ridiculous fight against critical race theory and ethnic studies, then we can see it as a day as full commemoration, as well as an acknowledgement of the difficulties that disinformation and misinformation has for the national character. And so Juneteenth, I think, is incredibly poignant this year in light of the incredible racial disparities we saw in people's treatment and access to care under COVID, as well as the fact that we are 1 year from the George Floyd summer and we don't see relief from the very pressures that created that summer.
When the Martin Luther King federal holiday was established, we saw some states rush in and on the state level establish Confederate holidays on the exact same day as a counterbalance. Do you expect anything like that to happen with the Juneteenth holiday?
Absolutely. Shenanigans are a commonplace reaction when there's any sense that the nation is recognizing its racial misdeeds. I think that what we'll see is an evocation of states' rights and resistance to the acceptance of this holiday, the same way we saw with the King holiday. And I think that really does reveal that these moments that we sometimes catalog as progress are always tempered by the fact that there will be forces that misinterpret and also overreact to these gestures.
There are recent polls out that show very few people actually even know what Juneteenth is. You know, the president and vice president today pointed out that it was a chance to educate people around this holiday. Do you expect that to happen, or do people just take it as another day to barbecue in the summer?
Well, I think that there's a lot of potential because what we do have right now are incredible historians. Many of my colleagues, we have incredible historical societies, local archivists and genealogists who are trying to broaden and nuance what Juneteenth could mean. So I think that there are people who will have an opportunity for learning, but again, we have to think about the fact that this holiday was created in the midst of one of the most ridiculous culture wars about the very teaching of slavery. And so I don't think that irony is lost on very many people who care about this. But I think that regardless of how people interpret the day that is Juneteenth, we still have to reckon with the fact that slavery is part of the national memory that we're constantly confronting and we're constantly having to grapple with because of a lack of education.
You know, as a person who remembers the fight over the King holiday, were you surprised, as I was, about how easily this seemed to pass in this particular Congress, in this particular vote?
I was a little surprised how swiftly this was enacted. I mean, I was a little on the young side during the fight for the MLK holiday, but I do appreciate Stevie Wonder's rendition of Happy Birthday, as well as the fact that the King holiday was highly contested because some people used that opportunity to debate the holiday to undermine King's legacy and call him names. And there was also a question as to whether Frederick Douglass was a more appropriate person to honor in terms of a Black person in history. And so I think we skipped over some of that debate and some of those contentious moments. But I honestly believe that in the implementation of the federal holiday and the observance of it, we'll see some of those same forces emerge.
Backing up a little bit, how do you put into context what feels like a resistance to adding Black events, Black narratives to the national narrative of the country? Like, it was the fight over changing the face of the $20 bill, the fight over this. Critical race theory just being used as a stand-in for anything that disrupts the narrative as we now know it around slavery and racism and oppression. How do you put that in context? What just feels like the broader group of Americans basically saying, we don't want you to be part of the story that is America?
Well, there's such a deep psychological and emotional investment in an idea of an America that is always morally righteous, that is always consistent in its practices, and that if there was any kind of racism, genocide, and violence, it is behind us. And I think that those are the impulses that make people incredibly anxious and incredibly reactive when there's any opportunity for truth-telling. And so I think it's just one of the many ways that power, when tested, even when it isn't upended or seriously challenged, reacts. I don't think it is a coincidence that corporate America, as well as popular media, became very invested in Juneteenth at the very moment we really saw this incredible groundswell of racial a protest around racial injustice in all 50 states. And so how do we decide which element of society is going to determine the way forward? And I think that the Juneteenth commemoration has a lot of potential, and I'm incredibly happy for the people who had advocated for this for decades. But what my concern is that the tipping point for this particular moment seems to be corporate America's investment in making a gesture towards racial recognition instead of thinking about the relinquishing of power and making reparations for past harms the solution to the problem.
Professor Chatelain, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.